Pasuk says, "V'ata tetzaves b'nei Yisrael, v'yikche lecho shemen zayizach, kosis lamor lahalis ner tamid." So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mitzaveh that Moshe should tell Klal Yisrael to find the proper shemen, to find pure shemen, lahalis ner tamid, that there should always be light, there should always be a candle. And this is how it was in the Beis HaMikdash. There was a ner tamid, there was always a fire going. And we know also on the menorah that it would burn through the next day, because there always needs to be light. And the Mishkan represents the human presence on this planet, because the human presence is the Mishkan for the divine presence, for something higher, for something holier that can live in this world, if we will allow it in. And so one of the requirements is that there needs to be light, there needs to be a candle burning. And this means, say Chazal, Shemen is roimis to Chochmah, wisdom. There needs to be a constant supply of wisdom, of understanding, of light. Kiner mitzvah v'Torah or. A mitzvah is like a candle, and the Torah is like a light. There needs to be light. Why do we need light? Because spiritually, if we don't have wisdom, we're blind. If we don't have wisdom, then we go through our days, we go through our time, we interact with life, but we're not really negotiating for ourselves, we're negotiating against ourselves. We don't really know what's worth pursuing. And so we need light in order to be able to see with our spiritual eyes. So what is really happening? What's really taking place? What's the underlying goal of what we're trying to accomplish? Where do we need to place our efforts? And so now, this time of year, we're celebrating Purim. And Shabbos, we're going to be talking about Mechias HaMolek. And so these people are telling us something about our lives, about how we live and how we're supposed to live. And so if they're telling us Mechias HaMolek, it must mean something to us. If it's such an important mitzvah that every year we have to make sure that we hear it, and this is a mitzvah d'oraisa. It's not like all the other readings where it's just later on we added it because people should have it in their diet, but this was a mitzvah d'oraisa, meaning one of the 613 important things that the creator of the universe wanted you to know is that he has a problem with something called Amalek, and he needs your help. Because Ein Hashem Sholem, Ve'en HaKisei Sholem, meaning the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu cannot be understood, and his throne, his glory cannot be present if we don't first remove Amalek. So who is Amalek? So we know Amalek is a grandson of Esav. Esav had a son called Eliphaz, and Eliphaz married a woman named Timnah, and from them came out Amalek. The pasuk says, "Leitz take," and Chazal say, "Ze Amalek." A leitz, somebody who laughs at life, he's Amalek. What's wrong with a little fun? Why is that so terrible? And so we have to understand the concept of leitzonis. Leitzonis is a personality, just like everything is a personality. Every name in the Torah is a personality. And within us, there are many different personalities, and we use what we've learned from others in order to interact with life. And so, when we look at life, the first thing we want to know is Are there any real dangers? What am I really negotiating with? How do I get hurt? And how do I not get hurt? And for that, we ask adults and we look around and we try to understand what are the real metrics, what's being measured. How do I get, if I want to get on this test 100, where do I need to apply myself? And so, from there, there's different ways of looking at life and how we're supposed to go about life. Yakov, Yisrael, the one that we represent, he represents the Midas HaRachamim. The Midas HaRachamim means that we look at life and we understand that we have to be compassionate towards it, we have to be merciful. The Midas HaRachamim is not the Midas HaChesed, which was Avram, where there's no structure, there's no rule. And it's also not Yitzchak, where everything is by the rules. There's a Midas HaRachamim, which means that you understand the goal. What is the goal? The goal is to build the people. And so based on what's good for the people, you can apply yourself and create the proper environment. And those people include yourself. To understand how to interact with yourself in a way where you get the most for your effort, for your energy, for whatever you interact with life. So that you know how to spend your time properly in order to do what's right. Esav, because he wanted to please Yitzchak, he was by the book, by the rules. And he wanted to know what is it specifically that needs to be done. And we see the different questions that he asked his father about how do you master salt and how do you do things that are not really relevant, they're not really part of halacha, but he was trying to figure out the technicalities of it because he wasn't looking at the heart, he wasn't looking at the pnimis. And so a result of this type of view is that people who come to see somebody who is stringent in places where it doesn't make sense to be stringent, they come to believe that nothing is real, that it's all a joke, that there's really no underlying principles in life, that if you violate them, there will be terrible consequences. They lose their trust in that belief, and that's called leitzonis. A person like that is not even looking for the truth, he doesn't believe there's a truth. He thinks it's just whatever you do, nobody knows what's happening, and whatever, we'll figure it out later. And how much damage can be done while it's happening, that he doesn't know, because he's a leitz, he's not serious. He doesn't recognize the consequences of everything that he does. And so Amalek is somebody that brings in doubt into everything that a person could give him. You're never going to satisfy him. He's always going to find a question, and based on that question, nothing matters anymore. Like it says, Leitzonos achas, you can explain to him 100 times the truth, but he'll find one thing where he's going to make sure that he already is free. It's a leitzonos, it doesn't mean anything, nothing means anything. Everybody's just saying, it doesn't really have any underlying basis. And this can only happen because he's in an environment of Esav, because he hasn't really seen what appropriate effort, what appropriate investment looks like. And so from his experience, he comes to that conclusion. He's really never seen anything else. And so this resulted that thousands of years ago, the world took a turn. The world took a turn where it started becoming secular. It started looking at life like we don't really know what's happening. There's no real rules. We make it up as we go and we try. And this came out very strongly in ancient Greece, in ancient Rome, where their behavior was based on what they thought is right. They didn't look to reconcile with anything bigger than themselves. They didn't think they had to. Prior to that, everybody thought they had to, whether they had avodah zaros or they had the proper beliefs, everybody thought they had to have some set of beliefs in order to make sense that they're interacting with life on a daily basis. They need to know something that they stand for so that they can do it appropriately. But when the world became secular, then you don't even need that anymore. You just interact with life based on whatever. And that happens to bring the world into a place where it became very sour to live in it. On the one hand, we all receive rights. We all have the ability to be safe, which is a lot to be said. It wasn't always available. But at the same time, the reason people are not so passionate about life today, the way that they were in the past, is because they don't understand life the way that people understood life in the past. And so the understandings of life made personalities that were larger than life, that were bigger than the way that we can understand life. And that's simply because their experience, their nervous system went through those types of environments. You know, it's the same system that they had access to that we own. We have the exact same machine. We have the exact same equipment. But they were exposed to ways of thinking, to understandings, to interactions that made life a lot more real to them. They were interacting with life in a way where their bodies and their minds were experiencing the same things. Because they understood their bodies, they understood which organs create which emotions and how they affect the brain and what they can do to counteract them. They understood themselves because they were very present. They didn't have the distractions that we have today. They had a lot of time and they had a lot of calm. This is something that got taken away as the world became more and more secular. Because the human spirit became meaningless. People didn't realize that there's a higher intelligence involved in what happens in life. They thought life happened somehow. Okay, so we'll do whatever, and then whatever happens will happen. But the life, if you look at it, has a lot to analyze. It's not really built in a way where it's meant to be ignored. It's meant to be lived with. It's not meant to be suffered. It's meant to be enjoyed. And so this is why in the Megillah, where we talk about Esther, the Gemara says, Esther min ha-Torah minayin. Where we see Esther in the Torah? In the Chumash. V'anoichi aster aster esponai. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm going to hide. Kaviyachol, the creator of the universe, says, the people, when they're going to think of me, they're not really going to understand what they're thinking about. And this is also the concept of the mask. Kaviyachol, Kadosh Baruch Hu is wearing a mask. Life was meant to be a certain way. Life works a certain way. We were designed to be a certain way. And as long as we did it in that way, it was like HaKadosh Baruch Hu was revealed. We could see the intention of life. We could see the purpose. It could make sense to us. And now HaKadosh Baruch Hu turned away from us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not showing us the real experience. He's not giving us access to the full nervous system the way that it was designed to be. And this is because of how we behave, how we interact. All the chemicals in our system were created by human spirits. Either we thought something or said something, or somebody else. That's where our chemicals come from. So whatever experience we're having, it's simply a result of inputs. There's nothing wrong with the equipment. The equipment always comes perfectly. And then, by negative emotions and by misunderstandings, we create all kinds of trouble. So we have to untangle ourselves. We're the only ones that can do it. And this means, this is the first step, is Mechias Amalek, to understand that life is not a mistake. This is not a mistake. This experience that you're having is not a mistake. It's real. It's more real than anything we can even imagine. Our brains are not big enough to understand how real it is. And so we have to figure out a way to come in there, to be present enough to make it better. Because it's happening now. We're playing with real fire. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu hid himself from us. And it's our job to find him. And finding him means finding a place where we can be okay with what he's doing, with what he has going. Because if we analyze what he has going, we can see that it has all the elements to work. The only one that's missing is wisdom. People are not wise enough to turn on the lights in their mind and understand how to go about being themselves. And so this is why the pasuk says, "V'ata tetzaveh bnei Yisrael, v'yikchu elecho shemen zai zoch." You need pure thinking. You need pure wisdom, which means we have to figure out ways where we can calm ourselves down, where we can think again, where we can feel, where we can recognize. Because if we do, we will have access to something that was specifically designed for us. It is our purpose, it is our destiny, it's why we came into this world, is to conquer this war, to overcome whatever evil has been accumulated within our hearts. This is why we are here. Because the sooner we can do it, the sooner we can be liberated, the sooner we can feel that life is worth living, and from there it only gets better. Because that brings health, that itself brings prosperity, that itself opens us up to all the good chemicals that are within us already, waiting to be used, waiting to be discovered by the brain that needs it. And so, Mechias Amalek means that we recognize something about what's taking place in our daily lives. That we recognize that our lives are not mundane. Our lives are kula kodesh. Our lives, every detail of it, is going to be what we're proud of for eternity. Eternity is a very long time. And so our lives matter, and every moment of our lives matter. And one day we're going to know how important every moment of our life was, but now we don't know. So we have to take leverage from remembering that this is much bigger than what we think we're experiencing. This goes much deeper. This goes much further, as we can see if we just look around, as we can see by the intelligence that's involved in being able to provide such an experience. It should be obvious to us immediately that something here is at work that's bigger than us. It's been working long before we were born. It's going to continue to work long after we pass. And so we have to make contact with that bigger one, because we're locking ourselves off. That bigger one would never lock itself off from us. If it would, we wouldn't be here. And so we are the ones that are locking ourselves out, and we have to figure out how to come back from behind the couch, how to come back and make amends, how to come back and be able to forgive. Because that's the only way we're going to live. There's no other way. There's no other ticket. The time of Purim, the time of Matcha V'Esther, was a beginning of going deeper into the Galus. The beliefs in the world started going darker and darker, and Klal Yisrael was in Galus Paras, which was after Bavel, and then came Yavan, and then came Edom. And Edom, which is Esav, represents Amalek. Because Edom has in it both sides. Edom has in it the side where everything is about the rules, where you get to an inquisition. And then Edom has in it the side where it just goes secular. Okay, so it's meaningless. Okay, so we don't have to be afraid of anything then. We can just do whatever. But there's a spiritual reality that we're interacting with that is very, very real. Our tissue is listening into this conversation right now and reacting to it live. It's real. Just because we don't understand it doesn't make it any less real. It makes it even more real because it's behind us. It's influencing us in ways that we don't understand. It's causing us to be who we are. And so we need to be very sensitive when we're interacting with human tissue. It's a form of brain surgery. Because it has tremendous impact on our entire body, on our entire experience. And therefore, it's holy. Why is it holy? Because it goes all the way into our Kodesh HaKadoshim. It goes all the way to our heart. And so, HaKadosh Baruch Hu cannot be whole The throne cannot be ready until we don't erase the concept of mundaneness from life. There's nothing mundane about life. That's litzonis. That's making something that's so holy, something that affects our entire destiny, that affects our generations, and we're just saying, no, that's not important. We got something more important than that. That's litzonis. And so for us to be able to create a throne for the creator of the world, it means that we recognize that what he created has wisdom, what he created has a way of how it works, it's real. We respect it. We try to figure out how to do it right, how to help, how to make it better. It's our responsibility, because only then can we recognize the glory. And if we'll recognize the glory, yes, he will rejoice, but how much will we rejoice? He knows already what it's like to rejoice, but we've never tasted it. So the concept of Purim is that we recognize that things are not as they seem. That behind the scenes, behind every story, behind every mundane act, like the story of Esther, which seems like just a story, there's no nace, there's nothing that's really earth-shattering. You know, a wife tells her husband, everything happened to be. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is working behind the scenes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created everything. If we don't believe that, then what's the point of all of this? And so through understanding that, then it's v'nahafachu. Everything turns the other way. Everything looks different. Everything that seemed like it was big and threatening can Yeshuas Hashem keheref ayin. If we change how we think about it, suddenly it can be a blessing. It can be something else entirely. It can look something very different. Because what we've seen of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is only his mask. What we've seen is only the part of him that seems angry, that seems sad, but that's not who he is. He's being misrepresented by the people. And that misrepresentation, that's his mask. And we have to see behind the mask. We have to see the real thing. We have to connect to whoever decided that we should be here. And we have to have an authentic relationship with him and recognize that he wants what's good for us. That opens up our heart to him. That allows us to be able to realize that he has glory in this world. Even when we can't see it, even when it all seems upside down, he sees this world and he sees its potential. He knows what it can be. And he knows what it's going to be. And that's why it's worth it for him. He made a bigger investment than us into this. And he's still going strong. And so we have to remove the klippah, the covering, the husks that make life seem tired, that makes life seem irrelevant, that make life seem like it's going to happen somewhere in the future. Life is never going to happen. It's already happening. And we have to make of it whatever we can make of it, because that's what we'll have. That's what we'll take with us. And if we'll take life to be as real as it really is, or we'll try to get close, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu guarantees us that we will succeed. Because he never asked of us to do any more than that. Because if we'll really give all our energy to making this world better, then there will be nobody working against us. Our biggest enemy will be busy. And then we will simply succeed, because we are the ones that sabotage everything that doesn't work in our lives. We are the ones that decide how we're going to interact with life and what's going to cause us suffering and what's going to cause us happiness. It's all settings in our brains, in our minds. It's things we decided at different ages. It's things that are constantly changing and evolving, whether we notice it or not. And so, as we make life holy, all our mind's energy will be creating goodness. And when we're only creating goodness, then automatically our negative energy will go down. And that will give us the ability to recognize even more the holiness of life. And then it's just a circle that reinforces itself as we go. The more intelligence we have, the more we'll realize. The greatness of the Avos, the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatness of Shlomo HaMelech was the capacity of their intelligence to understand what's really happening. And that's the difference between people, is how much do we understand, how much do we know how to really direct our energies, direct our effort. Because in accordance to that we create, in accordance to that we become, in accordance to that we then look back and identify as self. So we should all be zoche this Purim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give us the blessing of Lahudim Oisa'ira v'simcha v'sosem v'kar v'vias gol tzedek meher b'yameinu.
One day you wake up and you don't feel like you have control. You're like, once you're in it, you're like in it and you know you're in it, but it's so hard to pull out.
You know the difference is though that you knew it while it was happening, and that's a big, big deal. You might not now realize why it's such a big deal, but that already means that not all of your mind was in it. There was a little part of your mind already that was out of it, watching it happen.
And when the damage is done, it affected already everyone and you did your damage, right?
Yeah.
So, like, how do you live with yourself? Like, how do you move
Right.
on? And it, like,
Forgiveness, because you should be compassionate to the fact that somebody injected you with so much negative energy that even as you want to become good, you're having a challenge. So now you're working off somebody else's negative energy, which is doing a service to the universe. So it's a big deal.
blame someone else, it was me. Like,
It wasn't you, because you wouldn't want to do this, and if you were born and treated the appropriate way from birth, then you wouldn't do this. But you weren't. You were interacting with people who had their own issues and they passed their issues on to you. So now you're trying to rid yourself of it, which is a beautiful thing, that you're not just passing it on, you actually care.
so do you, like, let's say you were like really mean to like one of your children today.
Yeah.
So like, do you like apologize to that child?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
'Cause that's how I feel. I feel like that's right, but like, like no.
That's the best chinuch you could possibly give a child, is to show them how to apologize.
Like, I feel like you have to know how to apologize in like the right way. Like, how would you describe that?
Well, any apology is better than no apology, but it should be coming from an emotional place and not from an intellectual place. You're not going to apologize because you think it's good, the right thing to do. You're going to apologize because you feel that they were offended. So we have these natural...
You'll know what to say.
Right, we have these natural occurring emotions that we're just supposed to let them rise, come to the surface, express themselves, and they have their own beauty to it, they have their own nature to it. When we try to intellectually force things, that's when it gets complicated, because the mind doesn't really know what it's doing. It's just guessing. He heard this, and somebody said that, and whatever. But the heart has intrinsic instructions. It just responds to reality, live. So we have to tap into that and express that we realize that they shouldn't have experienced that. We recognize their right to not have experienced that, and we infringe on that right by making them experience it. You know, it wasn't about chinuch, it was somebody expressing negative emotion and infecting the future generation with it, which is detrimental. So if the child can recognize in their own mind that it shouldn't be this way, this will undo some of that damage.
And then there's like a Amalek, right? Which you're taught your whole life to hate Amalek, which is like the non-Jews, maybe it's the Germans, maybe it's the whatever, like who you're supposed to hate. I have to put my hate towards, so now you explained it that like, okay, it's like hating that, like making life like not real.
Yeah. That's the source of all the cultures, is that first life has to be not real, and then we can entertain ourselves with the movie and with the show and with food and with this and with that. Life doesn't make sense. Rome is burning, but it's okay. We're just doing this and doing that, and everybody's, we just keep it going. Where are we heading? Why are we doing this? What's the purpose? Nobody knows. And it doesn't feel pleasant. It's not like, you're on a journey where, wow, it's exciting. Most people are suffering inside. And so only because of Amalek, we're like, okay, it's life. As you feel, this is what it is. You keep doing it. But this shouldn't be like this. If people are suffering, we're doing something wrong. We're violating nature. So we have to figure out what we're doing wrong and we have to stop. You know, nature's crying.
Purim is supposed to be like the highest of the high, right? It's supposed to be the most spiritual time of the year. Higher than Yom Kippur. But if you look around, it's
Maybe that's what makes it high. You didn't think of that? If it's really high, it means everything is holy. That's the ultimate high, is where there's no distinction. Adelo Yoda.
it doesn't seem like that.
You're not at Adelo Yoda.
No, clearly not. Clearly not. But I feel like it becomes a little bit of a hefkerus, like a little bit of.
Yes.
I feel very low on Purim, and I'm wondering, like.
It's not because of the people outside that you described. I don't think so.
No.
I don't think you have that sensitivity yet that that's what does it. You know what I mean? It's just an excuse. So what in your history would make you feel that way about Purim? Like what was taking place on Purim? What was the
It's like very lachas.
what was the ritual?
We're going in the thing. We get it in. Everyone.
All right, all the mishloach manos and all that. That can take you away.
And then if you get a little bit too drunk, you end up throwing up all over the place. But if you don't get drunk, then everyone's like, why are you not getting drunk?
You have to figure out what.
Right, the pressure. So you have to switch it up. You have to take it from a different angle.
How can I have a good Purim? How can I just enjoy Purim for the first time?
So do everything different than you think you should, and then it might be easier on you.
Do
It's
everything.
Purim, you know? It's the one day of the year that you should just let
I
it
should do
go.
Vanahapa.
Yeah, whatever. You know, this year you're only giving lollipops. Everybody gets a lollipop, that's it.
Kaka, I'm just going to buy a bunch of lollipops. That's what you're getting.
The Yeshua came through Esther,
Right,
but as a Jewish mother, we're dealing with so many technicalities.
right.
Being the parent, with making sure our kids eat before they get hyper on sugar,
Yes.
taking care of our husbands once they're drunk.
On Purim, right.
On Purim, specifically
Yeah.
on Purim. It's supposed to be a spiritual day for us.
Right.
but-
How can you
but
enjoy
the
it?
The men get to go to shul, and we squeeze in trying to hear Megillah, be it with the men's davening or not.
Right.
and our children waiting for us at home, and having to just the small technicalities through the day.
Right.
Where do we find the time and the space to really connect and
To
and
connect
feel
the Purim,
day?
right.
Because the women have a lot more pressure on them than the men. He has the pressure of maybe the lollipop and the shlachmanis, but we
Yeah, you
I'm
definitely
not
carry a
belittling
big
that,
No,
because
there's
I
a lot
agree with
more.
you. I do agree
I
with
don't have
you
time for it all.
that society has put pressure on us that God didn't put on us with the shlachmanis.
Right.
We should just be giving.
It was meant, yeah. It was meant to make people help friends. Yeah, make friends.
Should be.
Because we could be providing for people's meals
Right.
instead of providing a lollipop or a bag of bisli.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
Or a
Corona Bear.
kitschy, fancy,
I
cute
agree.
shlachmanis that links with our costumes or whatever it is.
Right.
That society we put on ourselves. We don't have to
Right,
pay for that.
because
But I'm saying spiritually
Right,
within that
so I
day
think we
as
need
the
to
Jewish
designate
mother,
which-
because it's very hard as the Jewish mother
Right.
dealing with the children and with our
For sure,
husbands
for sure.
and with our homes and with our schedules and with what we perceive is expected of us.
Right.
Where do we
So I would say just on a practical level, because obviously these are things these rituals that became ritualized and have no heart anymore, then they become nuisances. And that's basically what happened here, like he's describing Shlech Manas. Yeah, it's not helping. It was meant to bring friendliness. And Shlech Manas Ishrei means we're going to show friendliness. We're going to have more oxytocin in our blood. We're going to feel all cozy and together and we care about each other type of feeling. And when the ritual becomes ritualized and there's no real connection to the intention, then not only is it not oxytocin, now it's become cortisol. Now there's some adrenaline going on. It's a whole different language. So the idea was the heart, and so we have to figure out within ourselves what do we want to do to celebrate, and it doesn't have to be what everybody is
we
expecting of
tell
us.
ourselves, okay, so let's be good. Let's make a list of people who we feel it would make them very happy to receive
Okay.
a shlachmanis from us. But again, we're putting pressure on ourselves.
Right. So
And
we
again,
don't
it's that
have
chase
to. We can.
And that run
Yeah.
around in the morning with the
So I would say,
Megillah and with the Shlachmanas.
I would say if we can foresee that, then there's ways of getting around it. For example, we can hand it out earlier. Let's say you send Chaim a day early, say that Purim itself, you don't want to be busy with it. They're getting enough Mishloach Manos on Purim, whatever. Also, at night, Purim night, sometimes is a better time than by day to have your time with yourself, to just be. Because, the children might be going to sleep already, and then by day, everybody's running and running until, for men until they throw up, for women until they have to clean up. So it's not like a day where people really sit and calmly feel the energy. It would be nice. I think Matche and Esther would appreciate that more, but practically speaking, that's not what we have. So, but for ourselves, we should try to rearrange. I don't know, me myself, I'm not too busy with Mishloach Manos, and I don't think anybody really gets offended. They realize we shouldn't do things at any price. I think that's one of the things that our parents got wrong. Is that by them, when it came to things, it was at any price. Everything was at any price. It's not at any price. You're right that it's nice and it's good. For me, for example, I know that I give people that feeling all year round, and I know they're going to understand, and I know what it's going to take away from me is going to be more than they're going to gain. And why would I do that? It's not a fair trade. They wouldn't even want me to do it. And so when you look at life from just people perspective, forget the norms, forget what people are used to and all that, just look at the hearts and do what's going to make it best for the hearts. And your heart should be the first heart on the platter because it's an important heart. Nobody else knows how to take care of your heart. So you have to really be sure that you're not giving away more than you can, because then your children are going to suffer, you're going to suffer, and then for what? So they have that little good feeling, but look what you lost. The price is not worth it. So we have to be able to do that math.
Did I lose by giving, by providing comfort or warmth to another human being?
If you end up being upset at your children, then yes, you lost, and it wasn't a fair trade. No, I'm saying if it's going to make us nervous.
I'm talking about on a personal level to connect to the spiritual sphere and energy of the day.
But that should change also how you can interact with your children, for example. So it could be just that enhancement alone outweighs the feelings that you give to other people with your Mishloach Manos. It could be. So you have to know that math. I can't tell you that. But you have to know really, when am I going to be the best that I can be as far as my family is concerned? And I can still do other things for other people. As soon as we go past that boundary, then the people who need you are not going to have you. Somebody else might have something nice, but what's happening with the ones that are dependent on you? They don't have where else to go, you understand? So always we have to look at ourselves first. Where can I be the best me? Because that's when you're going to get the best bang for your buck. You're going to be the most valuable to the most people when you're the best version of yourself.
If HaKodesh Baruch Hu is Ein Sof, so he's basically everything, so how is it possible for him to want to eradicate a part of him?
He wants to have his vision manifest on earth. And based on that vision, he's put in a lot of equipment and a lot of resources to make his vision real. And voila, it's working. But we don't understand what's happening. And so we don't have the light to see what we're doing. We're punching each other in the face because it's dark. Then we'll turn on the light and we see everybody has a bloody nose.
So Amalek isn't really a part of God?
Amalek is a concept at this point. He was a personality. He lived in a certain time and he left his energy imprint on life. And his way of thinking is still alive, unfortunately, in us. To a very big degree. If not, we wouldn't be in so much trouble.
You say that we're all born with a perfect vehicle, but what about those who are born for just a month and they have a defect or...
So we're not fully born perfect because our parents were not perfect. But nature works perfectly. Nature only takes what you give it and it develops it perfectly and it functions perfectly and it can think and it can speak and it can do. But the elements were affected by the people who gave it to us, and this is why we say that we are special, that we have special genes. That something Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov did because they knew how to manipulate their entire structure. Something they did when they created these children, that nobody else knew that secret of how to do that. And they created a special gene, a special variation of a human being that's specifically inclined to have mercy, to be kind. That's ultimately what a Jew means. Rachmanim, Baishanim, Gam Lechasodim. Those are the three symptoms of a Jew.
So what about those who are born like Down syndrome, and I'm saying like the ones that were...
So again, the parents and whatever they go through, and even the thoughts of the parents while they're creating the child, and whatever the experiences of the mother while she's pregnant, all these are real effects on the child.
To be blamed for the child?
It has nothing to do with blame. This is simply a way of nature of how things come out from nothingness into something. And so when we know how to be appropriately, then our children are perfect, right? This is one of the brachas in the Torah, "Verech pri bitnecha," that you'll have healthy children, you'll have strong children, there won't be any barren women, there won't be any men who can't have children. Those are the brachas for keeping the Torah, which means your entire body and your entire spirit will be clean and healthy. And that was the goal of keeping the Torah before the Churban Beis HaMikdash. After the Churban Beis HaMikdash, it was already clear that you're not going to clear yourself of demons, because there's so much terrible things happening everywhere. And so therefore, the Torah became about do the right thing, because eventually you'll help build the right world. And for that, the universe will repay you. But it wasn't anymore about making your life immediately better. But now, people are not killing each other anymore. And mostly we're hurting each other emotionally and psychologically, because not because we want to be bad, but because we don't understand what it means to speak. We don't understand the power of speech. We don't understand how that affects the brain. And so all this suffering we can eliminate simply by understanding, by knowing the truth, by knowing what we already are, what we're already living, what we're already experiencing. We simply don't understand it yet enough.
Why is there still I'm saying I have a nagging question.
Yes.
The nagging question is, all these sound gewaldig, but it's like we're supposed to get a redemption that no one got before, right? So obviously there's...
No, a lot of people got it, but it wasn't available to the masses, number one.
I'm talking about collectively, obviously. Of course people had Yeshuas.
So we don't know what's going to happen collectively. Even if you commit to this idea 1,000,000%, it doesn't mean it's going to happen now collectively. I wish it was that simple. But you can at least free yourself, at least to the level that's available to you, and it's going to take you a while. You have to overcome all the negativity that you've accumulated with time. So it's not like it's a switch to you, and it's going to take free. But if you are willing to make the sacrifices necessary to free your own soul, to free your own spirit, to be able to see life for the first time, then eventually you'll get there. And there's millions upon millions of people that got there. You're not going to be the only one at all.
So, okay, so is there a deterioration of generations? Now we've learned not to kill each other. We know not to kill, but we've killed for thousands of years. All the crazy things that happened, you still had a Yakov and a Yosef, and you had people that knew very well, and yet they had issues. Like, shouldn't they be free from those issues if they have already reached this level of being so close and seeing everything for reality?
We have to first understand what reality means. We're talking, without knowing what reality means, about people that did know what reality is. So obviously there's very different scales.
Okay, of course.
So they lived in a real world where they knew what progress means, and they really understood what the experience is, and they knew what they're willing to do in order to protect their experience. And they were so enthusiastic about their experience that some of them were even willing to kill, because they were so into it. They lived it. There was mamish. They had a lot of chayas. That chayas has been taken from us, generation after generation. As the world became more and more populated, the people in the world became more and more regulated, and that takes away the chayas. So a person living in the time of Avram Avinu, where his family is the only people living anywhere, and wherever he goes, he's speaking to a second, third, fourth cousin. So he lives a certain life, and he looks at life in a certain way. And a person living on a 50th floor in a tower, where there's millions and millions of people everywhere you look, he has a very different experience. He sees life very differently. He thinks about it very differently.
So it's also a quality and quantity issue again. When there was less population, I'm saying we had a Beis HaMikdash, we're waiting to get back to something that we don't know what. We have to inherit, like we think of Amalek, it's not even like someone else to hate. inside yourself to hate.
There's only
not even
inside.
God,
We
it's
would
us.
never ask you to do anything that's outside of you, because how can you? It's not even up to you. The only thing you can really do is make yourself better. And that's the only thing anybody ever asked you to do, really.